Hello, everyone. Welcome to Subtle Asian Book Club. We are super excited to be talking about our October book of the month, The Fortunes of Jaded Women. And we're so excited to be joined by the author here today. For quick introductions, my name is Tiffany. I'm one of the co-hosts of Subtle Asian Book Club, and I'm here with my co-host,
Alexandra. I'm
Alexandra.
also a co-host of Subtle Asian Book Club. And Caroline, can you please introduce yourself and your book?
Yes, thank you so much for having me. My name is CAROLYN HUYNH, and I'm the debut author of The Fortunes of Jaded Women. And it's a book about a group of an estranged Vietnamese family living in Orange County. There's over 14 plus women in the family, and they have been separated by each other by lots of family fighting and stuff. Yeah, it's like over 14 women in the book. I know it's a lot, but at the end they sort of like come back together. But first they sort of like find themselves first before they find their way back to each other.
Great. Super exciting. Okay.
Now that you know So now that you know a little bit more about the book, make sure to go out and read it. We're going to be diving into spoilers for this discussion. So go and read it if you haven't yet. Sorry, just to let Alexandra kick it off.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, right off the bat, first question. We love that a majority of the book was set in Orange County, California. We're both SoCal natives, so the setting really made us feel at home. Can you please tell us more about your upbringing and how that inspired your writing?
Yeah, so I grew up in Santa Ana, and Orange County itself has a massive number of Vietnamese people living there. I think it's the highest Vietnamese diaspora outside of Vietnam itself, I think, in the world. And I sort of like grew up having this like weird, like, I just thought like we were like the majority for so long, because this is like what I saw in my everyday day-to-day life. And then when I left at 17, I moved to Seattle for almost like 10 years. I didn't like see that anymore. And the further away I lived from home, the more I missed it. And so this book really is a dedication to my childhood growing up in Orange County. And I know you girls grew up in San Gabriel Valley, right? And 626 is so different from 714, Orange County, right? And like there's so many different pockets and ethnic enclaves within Southern California. So like this book really is like a small snippet of like the Vietnamese American diaspora scene in Orange County. And I really wanted to like highlight that culture because like it's just so chaotic here, right? It's hard to almost like believe, but Little Saigon, especially within Orange County, was like basically erected like Rome, right? Like the Vietnamese people came together and they constructed this like entire like little city within the city. And so I really want to pay homage to that resiliency.
Yeah.
So I'm going off script.
Oh, where is she?
Oh, we're here.
Oh. Okay. Tiff, do you have a comment?
Yes. So I wanted to go off script a little bit because I know we have our outline of questions.
Oh no, she's gone.
Yeah, where did she go?
I wonder what her question is now.
Yeah. Okay. Now she is back.
She's back.
That was so odd.
I got kicked out voice, but sorry.
Okay, what was your question?
Okay, so I was gonna go off script in terms of our questions because you were saying that SoCal is so different. Like East LA is very different from Orange County. For those people who don't know what are like the defining things of the different areas, could you tell us like in a couple words, which may be difficult, what really defines the Orange County or what really defines Little Saigon versus other parts of SoCal?
Oh gosh, that's a hard question. I feel like Little Saigon, well, right now we're sort of in the in-between stage of like being very modern versus very old school, right? And like you can still see like parts of Little Saigon that's just so old school. Like you kind of have to know where to go because of that to navigate around. Like you can't, yeah, you can trust like Yelp and stuff, but like even then it doesn't really give you like the details, right? Like for example, like like I buy all of my jewelry with my mother at Asian Garden Mall, right? But that entire floor is full of jewelry shops, the second floor.
Mhm.
And unless you know where to go and how to navigate and how to bargain, that's where you know what I mean? It's like a world within the world. And you kind of have to know how to navigate it because it's so operating very like old school ways. And so I always wonder like what's the future of Little Saigon and what's that gonna look like almost. You still see some like new modern stuff. Like there's all like the food scene in Little Saigon is like really like it's like phenomenal now. Like I've been away for almost 10 years and coming back, it's like wow, like I can see like the next generation trying to like preserve or like make it more modern. I don't know if that answers your question, but it's in like a weird like renaissance state right now.
No, that's
No,
really
that's-
interesting to hear.
Yeah, that's super cool. Because when you were talking about how like growing up, you didn't realize that like Asians were the minority because you were like surrounded by like so many like Vietnamese people. Like when you were describing that, that is exactly how I felt growing up as well. Of course, like 626, as you mentioned, is different from like Santa Ana and Little Saigon. But I could see like how you can feel that feeling because same until like I left California, then I was like, oh yeah, like racism exists, unfortunately.
Yeah,
No, but it
it's
really makes
weird.
us feel how lucky we are.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that too.
It's a very like insular bubble, and like until you leave, you kind of become more grateful for it. Like
Mhm.
it took me, I knew I always wanted to move back. It just took me such a long time to find my way back home. So, yeah, once you like leave that bubble and you really see like, you really experience things and you like without that safety net, it kind of really opens your eyes.
Yeah. But still good to like branch out and be more independent. Pros and cons to both. So our next question for you was, this is your debut novel. Woo, congrats. But reading it felt super immersive and fun. I listened to the audiobook and it was just so fun to hear like the different, like the way that the narrator kind of shifted between the different characters she was playing. And we wanted to ask you who were some of your literary inspirations. And I know prior to like the official live, we talked a little bit about like the Asian writing community or like the book community in general. So if you wanted to just share your support system or how you came to who you are today.
Oh my gosh, okay, so growing up, I was like a big fan fiction nerd, right? So I wrote a lot of fan fiction, I read a lot of fan fiction. So that was like sort of like my like upbringing, and then like fantasy, like young adult. But and as an adult, I really love contemporary upmarket fiction. So I'm not really influenced by a certain author or style because I just appreciate everyone's different. I remember like stories so well. Like for example, like I think probably my favorite book of 2020 was The Vanishing Half by Britt Burnett. Yeah, so I remember things like that. Can remember scenes and I remember how I felt reading stuff. Um, I just read Tracy Lynn's book, All That's Left Unsaid, the Vietnamese Australian author debut that just came out, and I remember feeling so like so sad and so heavy after because there were so many things that I like resonate with that story. Growing up, obviously Vietnamese in Santa Ana, so like there's a lot of different books out there that like I don't really have like a favorite author, but I just remember certain stories like stick with me, like Tommy Orange's book has stuck with me for a long time.
That's super interesting. Yeah, The Vanishing Half is definitely on my to read list, but I haven't read it yet. So now I will bump it up and try to read it very, very soon. But along with that, what was some of your research process when writing this book? What part was the most difficult and what was the most rewarding? Did you have to like read other books to do the research, or was it more like a reflective process where you thought about your upbringing, or did you try to like talk to your family? Like what was that whole process like?
So I really like stories where the characters each go on their own journey, and I really wanted like a really like Asian women Game of Thrones where
Ooh.
In Game of Thrones, they don't interact until the very end. And that's what I sort of like wanted for these women, where I wanted them to find their way back to each other. But the book took me like 5 years to write, and a bulk of that time was like I was living in Seattle. So I couldn't go to these places in my childhood, like in person to see. I had to pull from my own memory. So like things like T&K Food Market, I had to pull from my own memory, like Asian Garden Mall, like Banmija, Gali, I have to like pull that
Yes.
from my memory. Yeah, right? So because like I couldn't really remember it as much. So I had to like really like dig deep. And like this book is pulled from my travels to like from like Hong Kong, Hawaii, New York, my trips to Vietnam and Saigon. Like I just had to pull from that, and I knew I wanted to center it around Orange County, but I also wanted to be like so universal of the themes of diaspora all across America, all across the world. And like for Hawaii, like I sort of like based it off like my own trip, because the psychic is real, who I base it off of. Like she's like a real Vietnamese psychic in like Hawaii.
Ooh.
Yeah, and so she's like quite famous within like the Vietnamese like like mother scene on like the mainland. And so my friend knows a friend whose mother goes to see the woman once a year. And so I based it off of her. And then when I went to go see this woman like six years ago or something, I sort of based my journey to see this woman around the origin of this story. Yeah, so it's like,
Did she
it's
tell
really
you
cool.
anything?
Yeah, she told me I would become an author one day, which is crazy. Yeah.
Wait, really?
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, it's really like freaky, but I tell everybody this because it's like, yeah, I tell everybody this because back then, like I was trying to be a writer for so long. Like for 10 years, I had written a couple books and didn't go anywhere. And my undergraduate degree was like in journalism. It didn't go anywhere. So, and I just kept trying and trying and trying, right? And then when she told me I'd become an author one day, I remember like laughing and being like, I don't know, like I've already tried my hand at that, right? Also, it's weird that she would say that. And then when I came back, I was like, what am I going to write about? And then I was like, I'm just going to write about her. And then from there, it sort of like became this like weird thing in my head where like I always knew in my heart and in my soul how the book would end, right? And that's was sort of like my guiding map. And from
The next time you visit her.
Yeah, I should.
The next time you visit her, you got to bring her a copy.
Yeah, I'll be like, I gotta thank this woman in person.
Yeah,
So-
that is so cool. Like I was thinking about like one of my favorite parts of this book was how like the ending ties all loose strings together. Like I really love the epilogue and like how it just feels like a circle and it just feels like so complete. And I was like wondering about the psychic character and was going to ask you some questions about it in future, but we'll dive into that later.
Okay.
We got a question from someone asking, will there be more books in the future on the different characters that's in this book?
So many people have asked me that question, and like I think I want to let these women like rest for like a little bit, but I would love for them to make like special guest appearances. You know what I mean? Like I would love for like I have like my favorite characters. I would love to like resurface one day for books, but like more of like a secondary plot line or something.
That'd be fun.
So we had a question about just like the overall research process. And since you mentioned a lot of it was pulled from your experiences, did you get to do anything like fun trips for yourself or like fun excursions back home? Maybe just like to Santa Ana when you're visiting your family or like visiting parts of Seattle to help rekindle those memories?
A bulk of I would say so I wrote the book. Yeah, it took me 5 years, but I took a long break in between because like, oh God, like this isn't going to go anywhere, like whatever. But it wasn't until it was definitely pre-pandemic. It was the year, oh no, actually it was, So I went to Vietnam. I came back from Vietnam like January 2020, and then the shutdown happened in Seattle. So I had just came back, and Seattle shut down really early compared to like the rest of America. But that trip had like sort of like reignited my desire to finish the book, because I spent a lot of time in Saigon or Ho Chi Minh City, and I saw so many expats just like roaming the streets, and like they just like, or people who like moved back, like Vietnamese Americans who moved back to Vietnam because they just want to live there, right? And that really sparked a storyline for me for like one of the daughters in the character, her name is Tao, and so she goes back to live in Vietnam and like start a business there. And like that's sort of like that like inspired me to like write that storyline, and from there it like opened up all the other characters. And I really okay, so I didn't go here. I went here during like in my early 20s. I didn't go back. I haven't been back since. But the Vietnamese bikini coffee shops, okay, in Orange County. I didn't do research personally, but I did go there one time in my early 20s, and that scene has always stuck with me. And so I remember like that was the next scene I would write after, the younger sister moves to Vietnam, and I wanted to switch to like the Vietnamese bikini coffee shop scene in Orange County. Like that to me was like just again a very vivid memory of me watching women in bikinis giving me coffee.
When I read that scene, I was like, is this real?
It's real. Yeah, it's big on the West Coast too. Like there's a couple in San Jose. I'm kind of surprised. I thought there would be some in San Gabriel Valley, but maybe not.
Maybe I just wasn't cool enough to like go away.
Yeah.
Not ambitious enough. I was a nerdy high schooler who went to like a boba shop after school.
Oh my God. I was so nerdy. I was editor-in-chief of the yearbook 2 years. Okay. I was ultra nerdy. But I somehow found myself in one of these coffee shops in my early 20s. And I remember thinking, this is so surreal. And it just stuck in my head for the next decade.
And then you wrote about it, and we love it.
So in a way, I did do research like a while ago.
That's wonderful. This is also like an unscripted question, but I was wondering, like, now you're back in California, right?
Yes.
You're back in California?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. So how does it feel like being back after like moving away for so long? And how do you think that like influenced your book? Like, did you end up writing the book while you moved back, or was that already like kind of done in the editing process, already like ready for publication, or like how did that work out?
I moved back 2 years ago from during the pandemic, and I had a thought in my head. I was like, I don't want to die in Seattle, and I was like, I really need to go back home, and but it took me so long to come back because again, school, work, life, right? It just kind of keeps you away from home, and that's sort of like a theme of the book too. Like the further away you make other life choices, the further away you are from home or the idea of home. And so I wrote the entire book in Seattle, but it's interesting because like I had packed up my entire life in my car, and the morning I was going to drive down from Seattle back to California, my agent calls me at 6 a.m. and she goes, Loan bought the book. And so I was on literally the 405 or the 5 from Portland down to California. Yeah. And then I got the call, and I remember just like screaming. And then she's like, also like, why are you up at 6 a.m.? and I was like, I'm moving. And this is like, I'm moving. Today I'm moving. And so yeah, it's crazy. And so I sold the book technically on that in between, but I spent the year in California, like doing edits and revisions on the book.
Yeah, that's so exciting. And you got to like go home with good news too.
Yeah, I know. It's crazy. Yeah. And coming back as an adult is like very odd because I feel like an outsider again, like it's weird because I feel like the streets are so familiar. I don't need Google Maps or anything. But even as I drive around, I feel like a stranger. And I guess that's like a theme. It's also another theme of the book, right? Like, how do you refamiliarize yourself with the idea of home again?
That's so relatable.
Yeah, no, that is so deep. I moved to New York like last year, and so I'm like, I haven't been away for too long, but then whenever I do go back to California, I notice like very small things that are like different or changed about like my hometown. And then when I do see that, I'm like, whoa, I'm like struck with the realization that I don't really know California as well as I thought I did because of these like small changes. And I feel like over a span of like 10 years, like that would be like, I feel like that feeling of like unfamiliarity of a familiar place would be even more extreme. So yeah, I feel that. But now that you're back home, let's segue into the next question, which is focused on family. Since this book is heavily focused on family, did you consult any of your family members when you were writing? How much of the lives of our main characters were influenced by the people around you?
It's definitely fiction. It's definitely, I told my family it's all fiction. It's all made up in my head. But I do think, so the family's name, the woman's name, Jung, that's my mother's surname. So I think she got kind of like worried that it was about her. And, you know, can I spoil it or?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So like when the matriarch, the grandmother like passes away, like my mother had like read that description and she was like very upset because it's like superstitious, right? She's like, why would you have the mother pass away? And I was like, well, it's like fiction. It's not like I didn't write your death into existence, right? But there was like some like weird like it took a lot of convincing, but it's definitely all fiction. The only things that are real are like some of the dialogue is pulled from, I feel like Asian mothers are like very funny, right? I don't think they like mean, they don't mean to be, but they are very funny. And like, so some of the dialogue is pulled from real life. Like the funny one-liners, like, I remember someone once told me, I don't remember who it was, but she said, "Oh, you probably eat hot dogs for breakfast." Because I'm like, I'm so American, right? And that line always like stuck with me. So it ended up in the book. I was like, why would I wake up and I must have a cheeseburger and a hot dog immediately? You know what I mean? Like those lines are so funny because it's so dramatic. It's just so dramatic.
I think,
and for what?
Yeah.
Some of the like the language that the sisters have, like, oh, he's like a Kevin Nguyen type. I was like, wow, I definitely have said something like that to like other people, just like, oh, a generic Asian, like an ABB or ABG, like, oh yeah, he's like a Kevin Lee or like whatever.
Yeah, like the Michael Trans or the Kevin Nguyen's, right? Like, I just wanted I wanted the dialogue to be so, between like the first generation one, to be so contemporary, because I really wanted a reflection of who we are today versus like perhaps what people assume we are to be, right? We're like, our humor probably comes from like our mothers, right? And I feel like that humor is one of the best things that we've probably inherited, aside from like the trauma, right? But that humor from our mothers comes to us, and like that, the Kevin Nguyen's, like, you know, like that's just how we talk to each other. Like, oh, it's like don't date a Gemini man. You know, they're toxic. Like, this is like real conversation that we have among ourselves. Yes. Yeah.
No. Yes. Yes.
Oh, she's getting red because she's a Gemini.
Yeah, I'm a Gemini.
I give her so much shit for it.
It's okay. It's Gemini men. It's not Gemini women.
Yeah.
That's true though. But now we want to move a little bit into some of the plot and character questions.
Okay.
And as we mentioned before, The Fortunes of Jaded Women has such a fun cast of characters filled with different styles, different personalities. I'm sure anyone who reads it can find someone that they relate to. Did you have a favorite character to write? And on the flip side of that, was there a character you thought was super challenging to dive into?
My favorite characters were definitely like the Gen Z ABGs. like the rave girls, like Rosie and Christine, just because like I'm like so like far removed from that universe and culture, but like I like kind of grew up with it, right? Like, and so I just feel like they're so independent, and they're sort of like the new generation of like what like SGV or OC or Irvine could look like, right? One day. And like, so I really enjoyed, and their humor is exactly how, like, okay, yeah. The Gen Z girls are like my favorite. Yeah, they're very funny, and I feel like they have the best chance to overcome all these burdens and traumas because they probably have the most information and access to mental health care, and which is why they're so far removed from the family drama. And that's why I really enjoyed like writing them.
Yeah. I was just gonna ask, like, did you like intentionally have like Rosie and like the other Gen Z girls like removed from the drama? Because I remember like one of the last scenes of the books was like the final fight, and they were kind of like almost like watching. I imagined them with popcorn, like watching a movie, but I don't think they had. I'm not sure if they had popcorn, but like they were like, oh yeah, like here's what's happening on this side, and here's what's happening on this side, and like they're not like actually in that. And so was that like a literal I'm away from the trauma thing that you wanted to have?
Yeah, because I wanted to show like maybe it's too like on the nose, but I really want to just like show like the millennial daughters with their mothers and that clash of the titans versus like the younger generation where like they can see beyond the fog. Like they can see there's light at the end of the tunnel, and it's like they just don't care. They have other things to do, like go to a rave or like they don't really care. You know, like they just have bigger fish to fry.
That's true.
And so that's why I've always like liked their perspective, because it's always like just get over it. Just get over it.
That's very
So
true.
of the other sisters, then who did you find to be like maybe not as easy to write?
It was probably the two millennial daughters, so like Priscilla and Twee, where like I felt like I don't want to say like I am like them, but I am like them, and I didn't like them. I didn't like them. I didn't like those characters, which is why it was hard for me to write, because you know, so like I worked in tech for a very long time, and the character Priscilla and the guy Mark, it was I named it after Mark Zuckerberg and Priscilla Chan because I wanted to
Oh my god.
Wow.
yeah, I wanted to do. You guys are so funny.
Oh my gosh. I'm like,
It's all making sense.
Yeah, because I wanted to show that dynamic, right? Of there will always be a power dynamic, no matter how you look at it, and that's your relationship. And you know, I've been also in tech for so long, I can see it. Even though Priscilla's a CEO, right? CEO of her own startup or whatever she is, she's still like, because of the trauma with her mother and trauma with like whatever she carries, she's still in this horrible relationship, you know? And so like I kept seeing that so much in my life and in my workplace that I just wanted to write a character after that. And for Twee, like there's a flip side of trauma too, where like you don't know how to receive love and you don't recognize good love, right? And so this guy, the character Andy's perfect. Andy dotes on her. He loves her. He brings her coffee in bed. He listens to podcasts. He's a teacher, right? He's just like so perfect. And why would someone like her run away from something like that? Because she didn't know what a good example of love is and how to receive that. And so, you know, like you just want to like, I want the reason why there's so many different characters is because I wanted to show a different side of how trauma can affect each person, and you know how they like learn to like discover and understand it on their own.
That's so interesting and powerful. Can you tell us more about creating the relationship dynamics between all these different characters? How did you craft the intricate storylines and the family map? Because like as I can imagine it like being very wild. I feel like if I were to try to attempt to write something with like this many like storylines and all this drama, I can only think of that meme of that guy who's like this
Oh
and there's
yeah.
like lines everywhere. It's like so how did you do all the relationships?
Actually, that was me at one point because there were just so many people, and then I kept forgetting people. Like someone mentioned the character Bao, and I was like, "Who's Bao?" And I forgot that he was the grandmother's boyfriend briefly before she passed away. You know what I mean? And I totally forgot about that guy. You know? And so I I don't have a big family here. I have a much larger family in Vietnam. My nuclear family here is quite small, which is very rare for a Vietnamese family here. But I would like witness my other friends have these like chaotic Christmas parties, and it's very chaotic, right? And like so loud, and everything's always so loud and chaotic for like any Vietnamese party or whatever. And I really want to like capture that somehow. Um, and I watched. Okay, so aside from fan fiction, I'm like heavily influenced by like Korean dramas. Like very heavily influenced by that type of storytelling where like you everything happens every 5 minutes, right? I'm like watching this one show right now. I was on another podcast like talking about this show, Little Woman.
Oh
Yeah.
Yeah, but then like everybody like every episode someone dies. And so by the time
Yeah.
episode 6, like you forgot who died, right? But I kind of like that because so aside from the Game of Thrones thing, I wanted people to sort of like forget certain characters, and so when you come to the end, you see all the storylines clash together. So because like then you see all the coincidences that you like they didn't understand or could see for themselves, and then that's when all like the clashes happen at the end, where like I can spoil it, right? Yeah. Okay.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Like for example, like I really like the idea of like Mark finding a different Asian woman in a different country, in a different Asian country, and then dating that sister, and they come back and like that's your ex and that's your new boyfriend, you know, like, and I just like love that kind of like chaos because this can all be solved if they just talk to each other.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Speaking of that final scene, can I just say how much I loved it when I think it was Andy who like tackled Mark, thinking it was Daniel. And it made me think of the movie Crazy Stupid Love, and I was just like, because I think there
You
was
know?
a similar
So
scene
many
kind of like that.
yes, so many people have referenced that movie to me that it reminds them of that final scene. So I have to watch it now. Yeah.
Yes, you should. It's a really good movie, and it was just like, oh my gosh, I could just picture like someone just like tackling and all this stuff going on in the background too.
Yeah.
So moving on to our next question. Asian culture tends to view women as lesser than men, and this is a theme you kind of dive more into in the book. However, your story actually flips the script and put women at the forefront. Why was it important for you to kind of explore this woman and give all these female characters their spotlight?
I just think like historically we've never really had a voice. Even within like our own families, we tend to be like we kind of just it's all like based on hierarchy, right? You listen to your parents, listen to your grandparents, you listen to your father, right? Your mother listens to like their husband or whatever. I always feel like there's always like some hierarchy, and like I just really wanted to give us a voice because I just feel like things are changing, and like I always loved I hate using this comparison, but I always loved Joy Luck Club for that reason alone, right? Because it just centered the family dynamics on the women. All the family dynamics belong to the women, and so that's why I've always like loved that type of storytelling. I also wanted to like like it's so archaic to like, oh, like I need a son, I can't have a daughter, right? But because it's so archaic and like one of those like stereotypes, I wanted to make it funny and like, like I wanted to show how absurd that type of stereotype is and how all along the mothers have only ever wanted daughters. Yeah,
Yeah.
they never actually wanted sons. And so I want to flip that stereotype around because it's so archaic, it's so old, and like it's just not a real stereotype anymore.
Yeah. Like that was, I feel like if I had to pinpoint like one thing that was like my favorite thing about the book, that was probably my favorite thing when you realize like that, I think it's the epilogue. Yeah. Or maybe it's the chapter before the epilogue. It's like the chapter when you realize that it was all a choice all along. Like it wasn't a curse, but rather it felt like a gift. But I'm not sure if it was explicitly said that it was a gift, but it felt like, oh, like you whatever gender the child will be whatever gender that you want, kind of. And they all wanted daughters, and that's why like there is this like long lineage of daughters. And that was just so beautiful and so like so warm feeling.
Oh, I'm glad.
Yeah. But on the other side of that, transitioning to the next question, we're going to talk about generation trauma, which was personified as a form of a curse. What inspired you to approach this topic in a fantastical way? You kind of mentioned earlier how you wanted to not necessarily like make it like satire or absurd, but like kind of along the lines. So was that something that you had in mind as well as like a parallel to the generational trauma as a curse?
Yeah, almost. Like I almost wanted to like, especially for the millennial daughters, like the mothers have a different sort of trauma. They're traumatized by war, PTSD, assimilation, immigrant refugees, right? But for the millennial like generation, the daughters, and to extent almost the Gen Z kids, like I wanted to really show that yes, they inherit that burden, but a lot of the things that they're doing to themselves and the decisions that they're making is self-inflicted too. And so, but while all the women blame this like this curse, right? This witch has cursed them, and all along there's like never any curse. I've always like liked that sort of like metaphor almost because sometimes almost like Orange County, I wanted Little Saigon to be a character. I also wanted the curse to be a character too. Like it's like this like ominous figure, but it really is just like in your head, like. And so yeah, I just wanted to like and the curse is also again back to like you can't, you like you can never have sons, right? Again, a very like it's just quite fantastical. It's all in your head. Like everything you've ever wanted is always right in front of you.
Love that.
I like that.
Yeah,
I like
really
that message a lot. So I know as a reader what my favorite scenes were, but we're always really curious to know what the author really enjoyed writing. So what was your favorite scene to write and why was it super fun for you? And then as a kind of another question on top of that, were there any deleted scenes that maybe you were like had to take out that you wish you could have included?
I think I have so many fun. I was also like laughing while I wrote the book, which is like, I was like, oh my God, I'm so funny. I have to say though, my favorite scenes are probably the scenes of Ho Chi Minh City, like the friends on the rooftop. That dialogue is really how I talk to my girlfriends, my friends, right? And so I just love that whole scene and like up on the rooftop, they're drinking beer and they're smoking cigarettes and they're looking out like beyond like how modern like Saigon, Ho Chi Minh is. And I just love that whole scene. I wanted to make the youngest daughter, Tao, like just so sexy. Like I want to portray Vietnam as like sexy. It's like so modern, so vibrant. They have rooftop bars. And I just love that because I rarely see that type of portrayal of Vietnam. And so yeah, that part was like my favorite.
I remember that scene really distinctly because, like, I think the first scene where they are in a rooftop, I noticed that her two friends are named Alexandra or Alexandria and Evelyn, and my sister's name is Evelyn. And so I felt like I was there with my sister, like
Oh,
talking with like the character, and I was like, oh my gosh, it's like I'm in the book, and it was just very fun.
oh,
But yeah, that scene was also very fun.
Yeah, I really
oh,
liked Alexandra's character, the audiobook narrator. Like she had I think it was like a British accent or like some type of accent, and it did come off very sexy.
yeah. Vivi is such a good audiobook narrator. Yeah, she did such a good job. She had a scary job of like 14, 20 plus different voices that she did.
Yeah. Um, were there
Wait,
any
were there any?
deleted scenes? Yeah, I'm curious.
Oh, any deleted scenes?
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't. The Gen Z girls came very close to being cut from the cast of characters. Yeah, but I really
No,
want
but
to
they're
keep
so
them.
iconic.
Yeah, they're kind of great. And but I will say some of the storylines went for the secondary characters or like the cousins, like it went way too long, and so I had to shorten some of the scenes. Yeah, because it really my editor alone helped me center the focus on the main daughters and their mothers.
That makes sense. There were several fun plot twists in the book that kept us on our toes. We mentioned a couple earlier. Which of these do you have planned from the beginning? We know you talked about the witch as like kind of like the thread of when you were writing it, but were there any other plot twists, or like how did you write it knowing how it would end or knowing that you wanted it to come together? Like you kind of mentioned that, but yeah, did you know all the plot twists?
I did. I always knew the last sentence. It didn't make it. It didn't make it in the original manuscript, but during the revision, I brought it back because I wanted to show a good side of like a generational thing, not
Mm.
the reverse of trauma, right? Where like the mother at the beginning would go see the psychic because she was so lonely and she wanted to like find answers. And then when Priscilla goes to see this woman at the end, it's for like a different type of similar, very. She wants to help her daughter, but like in a different way, you know. So like, I always knew I would have the daughter come back to see psychic, but yeah. But for the storyline of Andy and Twee, I wanted Twee to propose to Andy because I was always I was inspired by Friends when Monica proposes to Chandler. And so
Oh,
I've always like I remember it was like I remember watching that and I remember thinking, God, like that's so good. Because Chandler's a bit like an Andy, right? And so I wanted to have that. I wanted to show that like in the end, like she chooses and recognizes what good love is.
oh, now I love Andy even more.
Yeah, Andy's so good.
So a similar question would be, do you have a favorite quote in the book that you've written? I know that there were like many lines that were pretty iconic, but were there any you're like, wow, I loved writing this one?
My favorite one is the one about there is nothing wrong about having Vietnamese daughters. It's how the world treated them that is like a curse.
Oh my gosh, I literally
I
have
remember
that
that one.
highlighted and underlined.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that one. That was very good. As we're wrapping up into some of our final and fun questions, what are you working on right now, or what can readers expect from you in the future?
So this was about mothers and daughters for my debut. For my next one, I really want to do fathers and daughters and show that type of relationship. Yeah, because I feel like I didn't give like the dads a voice, and I wanted to do one for the second one, show how different that dynamic is.
Do you think it'll be something similar with like a multi-generational family?
Yeah, I can't get rid of. My problem is I always have a large cast of characters, so I definitely need to trim again, and I'm really really trying to trim for this one. So that was like really just want to focus on like the main dad and like his daughters, but I'm hoping to set it in Houston because Houston's Little Saigon is also like very
Yeah.
big, and it's again a very different experience than California Vietnamese or Asians, right? Like, and I really want to highlight like again, the diaspora is so different in every different state. We're not all the same. We have different experiences, and I really want to highlight that, but also show again how universal. And again, the diaspora network, right? I'm hoping to maybe have some cast of characters from California kind of pop up in like the Vietnamese Mother Network in Houston too.
Oh
Yeah.
my
That'd be so cool. And then
gosh.
like your third book after that can be set somewhere else. Like, and then
Yeah,
it's all
exactly.
connected.
Yeah.
That is so
Um,
fun.
what are some of the things that you have been enjoying in life outside of writing?
Oh my God. I took a long break after my debut and even leading up to it because I was so tired and so burnt out. I have been learning how to relax and I've been watching a ton of reality TV. So I've been watching a lot of Real Housewives. Uh, I'm spending more time with my dog at the dog park. Yeah, I'm just like just enjoying life with me, my boyfriend, and my dog.
Yes,
I do
as
have to
you
ask though.
should.
I do have to ask though, were there any specific reality TV that you thought helped influence all the craziness and like excitement of this book?
I'm telling you, I come from a school of like K dramas, reality TV, like that type of drama and tea. That tea can like sustain me for like a very long time, right? And I know some people are like, oh God, it's so dramatic, and it's like, yeah, but like you like it, right? Like you love the tea, and so someone compared it recently to like Keeping Up the Kardashians because there's so many people
Mm-hmm.
and they're all like intertwined, and like I haven't seen a lot of the Kardashians, but I can see the comparison for it. Yeah.
Mm.
Have you watched? There's a Vietnamese like reality TV. I think it's called Bling Empire. I haven't watched it, but I know it's probably like a different. I don't know
Oh,
how different or similar it would be.
is
But
that the one? It's not in LA,
I think it is
right?
set in LA. I
Yeah,
think
I
it's in
think
LA,
it's
and
like
I think there's another season set in Houston, but I could be totally making that up.
oh my God, House of Ho. You mean House of
Yeah,
Ho,
Yes,
right?
yes.
I was
Yes.
like, I don't think it's Bling
Yeah, the
Empire.
Empire.
The other
Yeah.
one is on HBO, and I'm
Yes.
pretty sure that was
Oh,
like
okay,
just
okay.
with H.
So House of Ho is my inspiration for my next book because it's set in Houston.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. So I love that, like, and I love that the dad names the kids after presidents like Washington,
Oh.
Roosevelt. Yeah. And in the show House of Ho, the dad names the kids after presidents. And so that to me is so Vietnamese Americana and very, very Texas. And so that's sort of like my inspiration for the next book.
Oh my gosh.
Mhm.
Now I kind of want to watch it.
Yeah, it's really good.
This is not really related to your book, but do you have a favorite like reality TV show?
Yes, Real Housewives. I'm actually
Which
reading
city?
Beverly Hills. I'm actually reading this now.
Oh,
It's
Ooh.
like the inside story. I just my boyfriend just got me this book, so I'm very excited to read it for fun. It's like the tell all, the inside story of the Real Housewives.
the tea, more
Yeah.
tea.
Yeah, I follow Beverly Hills and Salt Lake City like religiously.
I've heard Salt Lake City is like actually surprisingly very intense.
It's very intense and it's also surprisingly very funny too. It's actually like fun to watch.
We'll keep it in mind. We'll keep it in mind. Okay. Now we're moving on to hopefully a speed round. What is
Okay.
a book that you're looking forward to in the second half of this year or in 2023? I know this year's almost over.
Ooh, 2023. So I'm blurbing and reading this book now. It's by my editor, Sunshine Nails, and so it's coming out. It's coming out next year, 2023, in summer, I think, or something. But yeah, I got like a like an early arc. So I'm reading that now, and I'm very excited for it to come out.
I've heard of that one. That one sounds really good.
Yeah, it's really good.
We keep it on
What's a
your
book
toes.
that you would recommend to anybody? It doesn't have to be like coming out. It could be like a past book or something.
The Last Story of Mina Lee by Nancy June Kim. Yeah, it's very good. Yeah. Also said the daughter comes, or she grew up in Koreatown in Los Angeles, so it's good.
Yeah, I think it's on my TBR. Ugh, I need to read more. Okay,
You're like, I think that's on my TBR. Everything's on my TBR.
Yeah, I was like, as I bought more books today. Anyway, what is your favorite Vietnamese dish, and maybe separately, and dessert?
My favorite Vietnamese dish is northern style pho, which I probably shouldn't say really, but I really like it because the broth is much clearer, and typically the pho that you eat in America and in California is southern style. So it's very different. It's my favorite. Actually, there's a spot in San Gabriel Valley that has really good northern style pho.
Wait,
What's it called?
What's it called?
Pho de Cow. It's like it's almost like a chain. Yeah, there's one in Orange County, but they have a second location. Oh, I'm sorry. It's in Rosemead. Yeah, so it's in Rosemead.
Okay.
My favorite pho place in San Gabriel Valley is also in Rosemead. So I'm like, okay, I will get on this.
Yeah, you have to tell me. I don't know SGB that well.
Well, honestly, I feel like that place that I've been going to, they changed owners, and so it's not as good anymore.
Oh.
But yeah.
Sometimes when I go home, I love going by Pani Chekali. Like,
oh, yeah.
I know it's like a chain, but it just hits the spot sometimes.
It does. Yeah, it's our McDonald's. We love it.
What's your favorite dessert?
I really like Jaya. So it has like I know not a lot of people like it, but it has all of like the jellies in it and like a coconut milk that you kind of like slurp and you kind of like use a spoon to eat. I don't know the equivalent. Yeah, it has like the multicolored jellies and stuff. Like I don't know how really to describe it. It's like very sweet. Sometimes they have like azuki beans inside. You kind of like scoop it out and eat. I love it.
Sounds good. I love all the desserts with the coconut cream on it.
Yes.
Okay, what is a must-visit destination you'd recommend in Vietnam? But also, I'm going to add to that in Little Saigon.
So when I go back, I tend to stick to southern Vietnam, but I really like Hanoi. I think it's quite beautiful, and you can see it's just a very, very different vibe. I would say like southern style is more party scene, but northern Vietnam is quite beautiful. So Hanoi is probably like my favorite place to visit. My favorite place in Little Saigon, I don't know. I only go to the jewelry shops in Asian Garden Mall, but it's also like the best kept secret. I just was told a fact that it's actually the largest supplier jewelry in California, I think.
Wow.
Someone told me that fact once, and very recently, and I remember being like kind of surprised. But the second floor, okay, I probably shouldn't. Well, actually, no, it's good for them. It's good for business. So I'll tell them. But like, you know how like a lot of gold you buy online, like like you buy 14-karat gold or 18-karat gold. You can go there for like way better prices and better quality. So I'll take you guys next time.
Yes.
I want to go, but I don't have the negotiating skills. But also, it's okay.
It's okay.
Support small businesses.
My mom can do it. My mom can do it for us. She can negotiate. Yeah.
We love it. Okay, final question. Do you have any final messages for your readers?
Oh gosh. It's okay to laugh. You know, like sometimes things are not as dire, but it took me a long time to find my own joy. Right, I'm like 33 now, and it took me a long time to overcome my own traumas, and so it's okay to find that joy at the end of the day.
I feel like
That's
that
so
was like
valuable and
life
special.
message for us, life advice.
Oh, yeah. Go have fun. Go. You're young. Go Halloween weekends. Go
Thank
go
you.
go make
Tiffany.
some bad life choices. Yeah. So,
Well, thank you so much for being here with us. We were very excited to be reading The Fortunes of Jaded Women with you and to have you on just to chat about all of the drama, themes, just like all the fun that is packed into this surprisingly like not that thick of a book, but like a very
yeah.
decent like bite-sized
Packs a
book.
punch. Packs a
Yeah.
punch
Packs a
though.
punch. That's the right way to put it. But thank you everyone for watching. We're very excited. Join us next month as we read our November book of the month. We will post it on our website and across our social media. And we hope to see you all next time.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.